Are you a law student or an aspiring law student or someone who's about to enter the legal profession and wondering whether your law degree will fully or has fully equipped you for legal practice? If so, I urge you to keep watching this video, as today I'm going to be talking about all the things they don't teach you in law school but are necessary for legal practice. The truth is, law school does not really prepare you to be a lawyer, but to think like a lawyer. That is, it teaches you to be analytical, it teaches you critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, but real life skills about legal practice, you actually learn them on the job. And even though there could be some practical assessments here and there in law school, it's way too academic and those practical assessments are not really that practical. You still get to leave law school without having learned quite a number of things that are necessary to legal practice. In today's video, I am going to be going through some of the things that you don't learn in law school but are critical and essential skills for legal practice. The first thing that I'm going to be talking about is litigation. In law school, they tell you that there is litigation, but they don't actually help you go through the litigation process. You don't learn the actual litigation process. For example, when do you litigate in real life? How do you file court process with court? And those things are very important because you can't just take any case. You need to know when do you litigate, and if a case is actually something that you need to litigate over, or if there are other ways in which you can solve the issue without necessarily going through litigation. All of those things, you don't learn them in law school. Those are things that you get to learn in practice when a case comes and you actually realize, well, we don't have to go to court for this, or you say, do we have to go to court for this? The process in which you have to go through to actually say, is this a case we can litigate over or not? That process you don't learn in law school, you learn afterwards. And in terms of filing court process, court has its own systems, and you don't learn those systems in law school. You only get to learn them once you're now in practice. And if you're a candidate attorney, that's like the first thing that you start learning when someone says, go file this with court, and you actually don't know how to do it. Those things they don't teach you in law school. You always learn in practice. The other thing that they don't teach you is legal drafting. So yes, there may be certain courses like civil procedure that may attempt to teach you how to draft legal documents, but it doesn't go into detail. They don't teach you what kind of language are you supposed to use, which documents do you need to draft in certain circumstances. And if you're someone who's specializing in contract law, for example, they don't even teach you how to draft a contract, and yet it's an essential thing to legal practice. You can't be someone specializing in contract law, transactional law, and not know how to actually draft a contract and related documents, and yet they don't teach you those things in law school. The other thing that they don't teach you in law school that is very important to legal practice is how to write legal correspondence. It's very important how you write a letter or how you write a particular email in legal practice, because how you structure your email or how you structure a letter can have an impact on the outcome of a particular case. The words that you use, the language that you use can have an impact. And you also need to know, do I send a letter at this point in time, or do I send an email, or should I just put in a phone call instead? All of those things, like how do you make such decisions, and what kind of things do you put in a particular letter, and what kind of language do you use? When do you use aggressive language? When do you use, okay, not aggressive, because you shouldn't be aggressive with each other. You should actually be collegial. But when do you use a certain tone that is firm, and when do you use a lighter tone? All of those things, they don't teach you that. Those are things that you learn as you progress in the profession. Sometimes you make mistakes. You start off by being aggressive, and then things don't happen. Then you realize, actually, maybe I was supposed to use the carrot instead of the stick. But those are very critical things, critical skills that, in my opinion, I think they should actually teach you in law school, like how do you write legal correspondence, because it plays a very big part in the legal profession. It's a very big thing in legal practice anyway. So they should be able to teach you that in law school. But trust me, when you leave law school, you're not going to be able to draft a proper legal email or letter. It's something you always have to learn afterwards. Another important thing that they don't teach you in law school is case selection. Which case to take, like how do you determine which case you're going to take? That is very important because you can't just be taking any case. I think it's very important for you to realize that as a lawyer, you need to be very strategic about the kind of cases that you're taking. Another thing they don't teach you is the legal briefing of advocates. How do you brief advocates? When do you brief an advocate? How do you approach an advocate? How do you even determine which advocate am I supposed to approach for a particular matter? They don't teach you that. They're not going to teach you what documents do you actually need to give an advocate together with their brief. What is supposed to be in their brief? How do you brief a matter generally? They just don't teach you that. Another important aspect is that they don't really teach you that academic arguments don't work in real life. Yes, they can inform a particular decision, they can inform the way you argue a matter, but they are not going to be the one thing that's going to lead to a conclusion of a matter. Arguments have to be practical. You need to have a practical legal remedy at the end of the day when you approach a court. So you can go and argue all the academics you want, but at the end of the day, it's about what remedy do you want, and is the court in a position to grant you that remedy. You need to always be practical every single time you're thinking about a particular case, about your client's circumstances, about the remedy that you want when you go to court, or even if you're not going to court, everything you do, you always need to be practical about each and every step that you're going to take. Yes, you can debate academics about a particular issue, but at the end of the day, you need to come up with a practical solution, because what your client needs right now is a practical solution, is a thing that will actually work for them, not an academic debate. Another thing that is very important, but they don't teach you, is how to communicate your work as a lawyer. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I don't have to communicate my work, but you actually need to learn how to communicate your work, not just for media purposes, but also in general. When you meet other people and they're asking you about your work, how are you going to communicate it? How are you going to explain it? I find that quite a number of lawyers, they don't know how to communicate the work that they do, or if they try, they get too technical and start using legal jargon even when you don't really need to be using it in order to explain it. They don't really teach you in law school how to explain legal work in a very simplified way, in a way that anybody, even lay people, can understand the kind of work that you do. The other thing that you're not taught in law school is how to deal with clients. So, dealing with clients is a process. You're going to get clients that are really good, clients that are not going to lie to you, clients that are going to pick up the phone when you call, clients that are going to respond to your messages, to your emails, clients that are generally interested in their matter. And then you're going to get clients who are just like, I spoke to a lawyer, they're going to do everything. I don't have to do anything on my own. You try to call them, they're not picking up. You try to leave a message, they don't respond. You're going to get all those clients. But also you need to understand clients are human beings. They have different personalities, and you might find that you have a very different personality to your client. How do you manage that? They don't teach you that. It's something you have to learn. Also, importantly, you need to learn how to take instructions from clients. Yes, you are a lawyer, but it doesn't mean you have to run with the case on your own. You actually need to run a case based from the instructions that you get from a client. You need to learn to listen to your client. They might come to you and tell you their issue, and you think, well, you could also seek this, you could also seek that. But if they tell you, no, I don't want to seek all these other remedies that you are talking about, I just want this particular remedy, you need to be able to listen to your client. Don't go doing things out of your own accord, like thinking, oh no, my client is going to appreciate this later. No. Learn to listen to your clients. This is something that they don't teach you in law school, but it's a very important thing in legal practice. Listen to your clients, listen to their needs, listen to what they want, and then from that, try to advise them as best as you can. What you can do, even if you don't agree with the kind of remedy they want, or if you think they could get more, you can actually say, listen, I understand your position, but this is also my advice, and they can take it or leave it. You can't force things on your client. The whole attorney-client relationship and what it really entails is something you're not going to learn in law school. They'll tell you that it exists, but they're not going to teach you how to do it. They're not going to teach you how to manage those kind of relationships. Dealing with opposing parties is a whole different process, and it's a very important relationship to know how to manage as well. You need to be able to communicate. So those communication skills when you're dealing with an opposing party, how do you communicate to them? Because sometimes emotions are too high, or sometimes they're just delaying for no reason, and they're just trying to give you a headache for no reason. But you need to be able to learn how to communicate with them in a way that doesn't bend bridges, in a way in which you can still maintain your moral character, while dealing with those situations. You need to know when to use the carrot and when to use the stick. You need to learn to be collegial, learn to give allowances for each other when it's due, but also learn to be firm with people so that they don't take advantage of you. All the time, you need to always find the best way to deal with other parties in a way that will not compromise your client's case or your client's interest. You need to know that ultimately a lot of things are not about you, but your client. And you don't need to be burning bridges with a colleague in the field because you just want to win a case. Law school doesn't really get into the meat of each practice area of law. A lot of things about a particular practice of law, you learn them in practice. It can introduce you to an area of law, but it's not going to teach you all the nitty-gritties about that area of law. It doesn't really fully equip you about that practice area. It can just tell you what's important, what they think you must know about the area, but not like the full details of that area. Those things you always learn once you start practicing in that particular area. Another thing that they don't teach you in law school is arguments for the other side. You're always getting scenarios about one side of the story, and they want you to apply the law to that side of the story, but you never get questions where you're asked to actually provide arguments for the other side. Whereas in reality, you need to learn to be able to argue for the other side, or at the very least, learn or anticipate the kind of arguments that the other side may bring that may affect the outcome of your case. Those are things you need to constantly be thinking about as a lawyer, because yes, you might get an issue and it might seem clear-cut, but sometimes a certain argument may come that will just squash your whole case. So you need to be able to think like the lawyer on the other side all the time. Another important skill that they don't teach you in law school is negotiating skills. These are very important in the business of law because there's quite a lot of things that require a lot of negotiating in legal practice. You need to be negotiating with other parties. You need to negotiate with the state. There's a whole range of things that will require you to actually know and learn how to negotiate. You also need to learn the tone which you have to use at each stage of a negotiating process, and generally how you go about it, but they never teach you that. Another thing, in law school, there's always an answer for almost every question that you're going to get. But in reality, there isn't always an answer. Every law school scenario, you get a solution, but in practice, not so much for various reasons. Either there just isn't an answer, or the law in that area is not yet developed, or courts have not been clear on what the law actually is when it comes to a particular issue. And as a legal practitioner, you need to be able to be prepared for those situations and figure out what to do when something like that happens. Another thing that they don't tell you or teach you or prepare you for in law school is the administrative side of legal practice. There's quite a number of things that you're going to do that have got nothing to do with the practice of law. Like, they have nothing to do with the law itself, but they're very essential to the practice of law. Either they're important for your case to run smoothly, or they're important for your legal practice to actually survive or something. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was very informative, and it's not for you to be scared or to be discouraged and think that everything has gone down the drain because you haven't learned quite a lot of things. The thing about the profession is you're continuously learning every single day. Even if you've been in the profession for 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, 2 years, you're constantly learning about new things almost every day. So you just need to be someone who's open to learning. You need to be someone who doesn't think that they know it all, because nobody gets into the legal profession as a know-it-all. You don't know it all. You're constantly learning every single day. That's the profession.